Welcome to another edition of the Black Tech Experience Lives. And today we are going over the scariest things about AI in 2024. If you didn't get a chance to catch the first version of this live, it's going to be important, but I'll be giving you a recap. But before I get into that, I want to mention, who am I? My name is Rami. I have graduated with my master's in computer science from Cornell, with my bachelor's in computer science from Fisk University, Black Ivy League. I have interned for companies like Google and Dell. I've worked for Twitch, currently working for another FANG company. So I've seen it all. I've written code for production for millions of users. I've written front-end code for the React Twitch site. And so I know a lot about programming, software engineering, and even AI. I took a machine learning course while I was in my master's program in Cornell. So to get back into the scariest things about AI in 2024. If you didn't get a chance to see my live stream, you would have seen that Elon Musk has reneged on him, saying that the AI hype is going to end in 2025. See, Elon was saying that if AI is going to stall because people cannot get their hands on enough chips, there's a shortage of chips. If you don't know, NVIDIA is the major player when it comes to the AI chips that support the GPUs and the different programming loads that they need in order to get the most out of the computer. And so the shortage is coming to an end. NVIDIA is able to get out as much as they need. And on top of that, there's companies like Google and Dell. Excuse me. There's companies like Google who are coming out with their own chips that they say is going to be just as good as NVIDIA's. And so with NVIDIA being able to produce more supply and other players coming in and making more chips, Elon Musk is saying the only thing that's going to stop people now from creating AI that's more capable than humans is electricity. Of course, there is a finite amount of electricity on Earth. Until Elon Musk can get us to Mars, or he's able to create a gigantic solar panel for the sun, we have a finite amount of electricity that we can harness in order to provide the energy source for these AI models. And so if you don't know, electricity, when a country uses too much electricity, it's actually pretty bad for the environment. So these AI models, it'll be pretty interesting to see what happens in the next few years. I've already been seeing studies and people saying that you need to be ready. You need to start stocking up on electricity, get generators, because there's going to be mass power outages over the next few years as people try to harness as much electricity to make these AI models thrive. And so let's get into the article a little bit about what he said. I'm not going to read the entire thing like I did last time on the stream, but just to give you a little bit of context for those who may not have gotten a chance to view it. All right, let's close that. Basically, Elon Musk is saying in 2025, right, next year, he thinks that AI is going to be so much better than every single human being on this planet. And if you've taken a chance, if you have a chance to see how ChatGPT performs on different models or different results, you'll see that it's already in the 99th percentile in a lot of these different tests. So I'm a little bit skeptical about exactly what he means? Does he feel like AI will be better than going to a doctor or asking a lawyer next year? Because it still seems like, for me, one might say that AI can do all the programming, but today it still can't, because you need somebody with an advanced level of knowledge like myself in order to get the most out of a chat GPT model. And so let's get into it. He says, my guess is that we will have AI that is smarter than any one human probably around the end of the next year. And within the next 5 years, the capability of AI will probably exceed that of all humans. So yes, this is what's scary, right? We've seen Terminator. We've seen the different AI movies that talk about. Let me get a close up back on me. My bad. We've seen the different AI movies that talk about how humanity would destroy itself if we were able to get, if we put too much emphasis on AI. We've seen, if you've seen League of Legends, right? They have a movie, or not a movie, they have a series on Netflix. I'm forgetting the name. Basically, they talk about magic and how they had very optimistic goals for what magic was going to be. But when it came time to go to war, they used it for nefarious purposes. And the same thing can be said about AI. Well, there is somebody that is saying that AI is not what we think it is. It's not good enough. It's not smart enough to do the things that we think it can do. Elon Musk is saying, hey, we think it's going to take a year, maybe 5 years until it's smarter than every one human. But at Meta, the AI chief, one of the godfathers of the entire field, is saying models will never be good enough to be better than 4-year-olds or animals, because it does not have the ability to learn. Let's take a look. There it is, real quick. I'm just going to read you a part. You can check out the other stream if you want to see the entire article. I'll be linking in the description. Ugh. Yeah, this site had too many ads, man. He reportedly said that reasoning, planning, persistent memory, and understanding the physical world are the 4 essential characteristics of human intelligence, and also animals, for that matter, that current AI systems cannot do. And if you don't know who this is what is his name? Yan LeCun. He's saying, hey, AI will never have the ability to plan, reason. Let's go back to the quote. AI will never have the ability to reason, plan, and have persistent memory, understanding what physical worlds are. And this is true. If you look at Chat GPT, the way that we feed it information, the way that we feed Chat GPT information is all text-based. It's all text. It's all image-based. Can Chat GPT feel? Can it touch something in the real world and realize, hey, we can't go down this path? Can Chat GPT plan what it's going to do today. Like we could get a 4 or 5 year old. Could we get ChatGPT to reason like a chimpanzee, where it is able to pick numbers in a row sequentially without help from without some of the numbers missing? It will struggle. If we feed it in the correct way, if we give it the right text information, ChatGPT will do great. It will do better than most humans. But this is the limitation of the current architecture of AI, that it is heavily dependent upon text. And so obviously there are people, I've seen articles of people trying to bridge the gap, people who are investing all their time and energy into creating the next model, the next AI architecture, ones that can read the physical world, ones that can plan. Well, let me ask you, how is common sense teachable? Can you teach somebody to plan, even under duress, right? Maybe you've seen South Park, right? Where they tried to teach Kyle in the Human Centipede episode how to read. These things can be extremely hard to teach a human being this. Even me, I'm a software engineer. I've made it to the highest echelon of tech companies. And I have struggled with executing a plan and meeting a deadline when it needs to be met. These things are extremely challenging for humans, and the smartest, the strongest, the most brilliant of us are able to do this at such an extreme high level. But how? But these people, you ask Elon Musk, you ask the smartest person you know, can you teach me how to do this? And then that's an entirely different question. I'm not trying to say that some people are born that we cannot teach common sense, that we cannot teach a human being in order to plan. I'm just saying, in order to teach that information, for me, it came through experience. It came through continually failing and trying again. And that's basically what AI models do, but it never has the same idea of planning, at least not today. And so if you saw one of my other reaction videos, we were listening to Sam Altman say the GPT-4 sucks. And he feels like in a few years, we'll be looking back at GPT-4 and laughing at how terrible it is compared to whatever GPT is out at this current moment. And that is the evolution of technology. If you remember playing video games back in the day on the Super Nintendo 64, I remember as a kid, I always thought to myself, these graphics were amazing. They look super realistic. But if I were to go back and I would compare games on the Super Nintendo to what's out today, they look trash in comparison. So what I am trying to tell you is that if you guys think that what AI is doing today is amazing, just watch out for what is coming in the next 5 years, right? We have Elon saying in the next 5 years, it's going to be smarter than every single human being on this planet combined. But keep in mind, Elon Musk did say that we were going to be on Mars by now. He promised us electric cars that took 2 years after when he said it was going to come out. And so just keep in mind, some of the things that people say, engineers, entrepreneurs, are supposed to be insanely optimistic in order to get the work done. It's a needed quality in order to be a part of the field. And some of that optimism, sometimes we overestimate when we're able to deliver and when we think the world is going to change. So you've heard both sides. You heard one side say AI is coming in the next year. You've heard Meta's AI chief, another side, say at least with this current architecture, it will never be able to overthrow humanity. And it's not even worth, people think that AI is going to be like some science fiction movie and it's going to destroy humanity, but it will never be capable of that. It's not smart. It's just really good at reading information. So I'm going to end the monologue there, and I'm going to get into the reaction part of this content. What we're going to be looking at now is, if you've seen one of my past videos, Devin AI. Devin AI is the world's first AI engineer. It can run benchmarks. It can do simple tasks without the use of human beings. And it's currently saying that it is 10 times better than ChatGPT and the other models that are around. If you try, it said that it was able to solve 15% of issues on GitHub, which, if you don't know what GitHub is, it is a place where people can upload code privately or publicly. They uploaded the code. It was able to solve issues on GitHub just like human beings do. And also, another note is that GitHub can be used for open source, where people can go and work on projects for free for other people to gain experience. And so, with this wealth of information and knowledge, Devin AI was able to solve problems just as good as any human being. Well, not any human being, but it was able to solve many problems way farther than the average model. And so we're going to be looking at a video of other software engineers like me asking, do they think that Devin AI is ever going to be capable of taking their jobs? So let's get into it.
Tired of having
just when I thought I had it all the way figured out, the ad shows up. I'm going to be listening to it. All right, so we're back.
I chat with 3 of my coding YouTuber friends.
We might not watch all of it.
Tech with Tim, Kevin Naughton Jr., and Nick White about software development's seemingly looming threat. We'll be discussing Devin AI, the impacts that AI has on software development as a whole, if you should be worried, and ways you can sort of future-proof your career. Now, I'm really excited to share this video with you because we had a ton of fun filming it. So, Tim, can you tell us about Devin AI?
Yeah, so Devin AI has been kind of going viral over the past few days. And from what I hear and from what's out there, it's the first AI software engineer. Now, according to Devin itself, or the company that's behind it, it can solve about 14% of GitHub issues. It might not seem like a crazy amount, but compared to something like ChatGPT that can currently solve 5, it's pretty impressive. Now, from what I understand, the way it can do that is because it has access to its own IDE, its own browser, its own console, and the demo video they showed, at least, the way it solves problems is very similar to how any of us would do it. It makes a plan, it starts solving it, it runs into an issue, it debugs the issue, it goes on Google like any of us would do, like a normal software engineer, and starts solving problems. So it's pretty incredible so far to see it working, but I don't really know what it's going to mean for the future.
Yeah, I don't know. Sounds pretty trash.
Yeah, you don't like it?
14% is pretty bad.
I mean, that's a lot, though.
I mean, for an AI, I think ChatGPT was around 5%
Yeah.
of issues.
I know, but these all just came out in the past like year.
How many
2 years.
GitHub issues can you solve percentage-wise?
Probably 99.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That sounds about right.
But no, I mean, that's pretty fast, like, development.
So for me, I don't think I can solve all of GitHub issues, and I think these guys are being kind of what is the word? Facetious. That might not be the correct word, but they are trying to be funny. Definitely, there's some, especially if you don't have experience in a language. Solving a GitHub issue can sometimes take weeks or months. I think what's cool about the idea of an AI doing certain things is that the AI might have solved it in like 10, 15 minutes. And so that is something that if it can perform well, like we'd love to, it will replace human beings. But yes, like a lot of times, I don't think people understand how much writing code is just being familiar with the entire code base. At my job, I'm working on a new service, and even to this day, like I'm seeing files that I've never seen before, and they give me a holistic, better understanding of how to use it, how to use the service a lot better. So there is a part of computer science which is learning the service that you're working on and programming it for a long time. And it gets a lot easier as you spend more time on it, especially if you spend 2 or 3, 4 years on it. So, yeah.
From ChatGPT, where it was a year ago.
Yeah, it's only been out a year. Or a year and change.
And now we've got this thing.
Right.
I mean, that's only a year, so that's pretty bad.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, 14% is low, but it's just rapidly increasing
Yeah.
year over year. So it is pretty, I mean, it is kind of concerning, like, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the 14% you got to put in the perspective of all software engineers. From what I understand, in that same data set, it's like all software engineers, like normal ones that are working, and solve like 70 to 75% of those GitHub issues. But it's how much better is it going to get? But when I look at a stat like that, I wonder what issues is it actually solving, right? Is it refactoring something? Is it doing a basic fix? Like, it's difficult to get much information from those kind of stats. I think now it's just, we're just guessing what it's potentially going to be able to do.
Yeah.
So it Googles for like answers to problems?
Yeah, you can see in the demo video that it needs to use some kind of API. So what it does is it goes and like looks up the API documentation as like a reference, and you'll see it in like the little browser.
All right, so it's definitely not human. No one looks at docs.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
I asked ChatGPT.
I think that's funny. It's like there's a part of programming that's like documentation, right? And I've heard people say if you don't know what if you're not familiar with Stack Overflow, it's basically a site where we go and we ask questions to other software engineers. And somebody said something like Stack Overflow is documentation. And so, I had the thing right. It's documentation. My bad. I lost my train of thought. Stack Overflow is documentation, which is instead of the people who actually wrote the software and wrote the services that we use every day, telling us every single thing that we need to know, sometimes they have left out details that need to be asked on Stack Overflow. And I think this is where people are going to struggle, or the AI is going to struggle, is because even in my team, even in my job, sometimes I have to have meetings with teams in order to figure out exactly what do they want or what do they need in order to make their service work, because they have not correctly documented everything, every step that they need to do. And so AI is I think there needs to be a better emphasis on software engineers writing great documentation before AI can come along and program, because some of this stuff can be kind of esoteric knowledge, and that you have to be, like, for instance, at Twitch, the entire code base got leaked. But you don't see, it's not like you see everybody. It's not like we saw like 20 or 40 or 60 new Twitches come up, because you still need thousands. You need people like me with specialized knowledge who knows how to run the code. And then some information is hard to necessarily copy because some information was left out of the documentation. So
GPT that looks at docs.
Right.
Yeah.
Can Devin use ChatGPT?
That's interesting. I don't know. I imagine it would be able to if it could just go online and like open up ChatGPT, but can it buy a subscription to software? Like, I'm not sure.
So one of the questions that we got asked in our coding community is, by the way, we run a coding community with 13,000 other software developers. We run challenges in there. We just talk with each other. We have live video calls. It's a really cool community. You got to check it out.
Link in the description.
A question that we got asked in our programming community was around if you should be worried if Devin's going to replace your job. So what do you guys think about new software engineers learning how to code and having this looming threat of AI replacing their potential job in the future?
I think that people are too concerned about this kind of stuff. And if it's going to happen, it's going to happen anyway. So what are you going to do about it? You can't do anything. And it will, if it's going to replace programmers, it's going to replace every other job, like a bunch of other jobs.
First.
So the way the world will work and the economy will function and everything will function would completely change if it comes to that, if every job's automated. So I just think people are a little bit too concerned about that.
Yeah, I kind of feel too, like if I was a beginner programmer and I didn't know how to do anything, there's a lot more people like that. There's a lot more people who don't know how to code than people know how to code. And so when they look at something like this, oh my gosh, it's coding. Oh my gosh, it's running things in the terminal. It's looking up documentation. It's calling an API. That's like, to us, that's like whatever. That's what you do day to day. That's what the people who are software engineers, who are the minority, already do. And so if I was like looking into getting into this field, it would seem really concerning because it's like, oh my gosh, it knows how to do these things that I don't. But then there's a smaller subset of people who are way quieter, I think, who are like, okay, like that's not that complicated. It ran a lint command. It interacted or got data from a public API. Yeah. It's like, that doesn't seem crazy. But big groups of people are concerned.
I think what you're getting at is the fact that like, as you get better as a software engineer, coding is no longer the hard part. It's actually software engineering, which is so much more than just coding, right? Interacting with the team, telling your manager that feature is horrible and you shouldn't implement that, right. Making long-term architectural decisions, deciding what features you're going to add, interacting with the product manager. Like, I know we do so many other things, most of which isn't even coding. Mm-hmm. And at least at this point for me, like, the hard part is coming up with the solution, architecting it and working with other people. The easy part is translating it into code, which is, as a beginner, what you first need to learn right before you become a software engineer.
Yeah, so I also feel like the problem with AI right now, and when you think about humans, when we design features, like you're saying, we design.
Just a quick get back into that. You're right. Like, and I've said this so much on my channel. So much of software engineering is being great with human beings, which is kind of like it seems like an oxymoron, right? Like when I was in school, like I always heard people talk about senior software engineers not coding. I'm like, how is that possible? How can you reach the upper echelon of the pay scale and the what is the word? The prestigiousness? How can you reach this high and not code? It's because dealing with humans, writing code only affects so much, but being able to work with other human beings scales. Think about LeBron, right? Think about Magic Johnson. Think about a great point guard. Their job is to make their teammates look better. Their job is to make their lives easier. This has a profound effect upon the team's success, where some people we've seen on teams, if they ball hog, there's a ball hog. He might be extremely talented, but nobody wants to follow him. or think about Jordan Poole, or think about I don't want to diss anybody, but yeah, you probably know what I'm talking about in the sense that when somebody is selfish on a team, even if they are talented, they kind of bring the team's success down. Like we lose regardless. But sometimes when somebody is selfless and they put the team's needs over theirs, that energy spreads to the other team members, and it's almost like a cycle that gets the ball gets gets the ball rolling even faster, like in motion. Like when a motorcycle's wheels are speeding up, it becomes more balanced. Where like the people who are selfish kind of like slow everything down. Come here.
Find stuff, we figure out what we want to build, we build it, you constantly iterate on it. And I think the specifications for what you've built are so intricate a lot of times, and they change and they're fast moving, that I think unless you can really capture that and tell that to an API, tell that to an AI, and then it can solve that problem, I don't think we really have to be that worried. What I'm trying to say is the target constantly moves. You build something, you iterate, and then it changes. And it's super intricate, the details you have to go into when you build stuff. And I don't think AI is, at least in my opinion, anywhere close to that level of specificity. Like, we don't even know what to build for people. Exactly. We're trying to figure it out. How are we possibly going to tell a machine, go solve this problem? It's like, we don't even know what we do. That's why companies spend millions and millions of dollars A/B testing, changing copy, changing colors of stuff, because we don't know what works best. And so the fact that you think you could write a 1-sentence prompt to Devin or any other AI and then expect it to spit out the perfect, catch-all silver bullet that will generate millions of dollars or something seems kind of far-fetched to me, at least right now.
Yeah, it can solve very beginner level problems right now, but to Nick's point, it is like progressing very fast. From 5% of GitHub issues to 14%. Like, where will it be at in the next 2 years? I'd like to take a quick break to talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is Udemy. Now, Udemy.
The thing that I always think about is that what it's good at and what scares people is code generation, right?
Yeah.
Because it's actually writing a bunch of code. And when you're a beginner and you're starting out, like the really tough part.
A quick note on that, right? That's exactly right. Like being a software engineer, no project has ever, I saw a quote, no battle ever went according to plan, but no battle was ever won without a plan. And so as a software engineer, like things change, guidelines change, roles change, and you got to be adaptable. Usually it shouldn't change over like 70%. It shouldn't change. 70% of your original vision should have still been there. At the same time, like it's important to be able to progress. And like, what if the AI just wrote the first vision and we aren't able to get it to come back and pivot upon that? That's going to be something that we've got to pay attention to, is that the engineers that are writing the code with the AI understand what's going on, and that the AI is also able to adjust for situations that we have not seen before.
For you is like, how do I code? What is this language? What is the syntax?
Right.
But like we've been saying, like there's so much more just beyond code generation. Even if it did perfect code generation and can write anything you ask it to do, you still need to have the skills to know what to ask it to do, right? I go to any person who's not a software engineer or not in the tech field and ask them, okay, use ChatGPT and build out and give them like a medium level problem. Let's see how long it takes them to actually use that versus someone who already knows the basics of programming and is familiar with these types of tools and these problems already, right? We can use AI because we already know what we want it to do, and it can just automate all of the boring stuff that usually takes us a lot of time. But can someone with no experience in software engineering that hasn't solved those problems before use those tools? I don't know the answer to that, really.
Why do you guys think programmers specifically are so fixated on this? Like AI replacing programmers? Nobody else is fixated on like AI replacing my job.
Well, I think it's because there's a lot of fear mongering on it. It just gets clicks. Like when you make videos about it, people are gonna watch it.
That's mainly what I think too. Is like just everyone constantly pushing that like narrative.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I haven't heard about anyone being replaced by AI. Any software engineer, like I haven't heard of anyone in this field. And until I hear about that, even if it's like very junior level developers, then I'm not gonna get concerned about it until I hear something like that.
Yeah, but to answer your question, Nick, I think the reason programmers are more fixated than other careers is because we're so close to it already, right? Like we're the ones building the AI that are replacing our own jobs. So I think naturally just being in that tech field, like all of us are interested in new technology, new coding tools, whatever. Yeah. So we're going to be on it right away. And then like you see all this fear mongering, all the negative, like that's going to pile up over all the positive. And everyone saying, hey, look how much better I was able to be using this AI. Look how much faster I could be. Look how much more of a competent developer I am now because I have access to those tools, right? I don't know about you guys, but I use AI all the time and it's like completely changed my workflow.
It's kind of ironic because I feel like
to be honest with you guys, there's one part of this that's like, I don't use AI in my workflow. I sometimes use ChatGPT to ask questions about what code could look like, but I don't necessarily use it I don't necessarily like copy and paste my entire code base in there and try to get it to give me answers. And to be honest, like what I see is sometimes the information that gives me is out of date, or it's like 90% right, with that 10% being something that I absolutely needed, that was critical. So yeah, I think there's a fear. I definitely do fear it because it's like the job market right now it's 2024 April, right? And we see that there is it seems like we're going into a recession. And for software engineers, I think one of the reasons why we were software engineers, or the people who become software engineers, is so turned on by this job, for lack of a better word, are so inspired to get this job, is that it offers so much comfortability with less work than being a lawyer or doctor, right? I don't wake up and worry that I'm going to kill somebody today, like a doctor might if they make a mistake. But at the same time, it's like my career potential is up there with a doctor or a lawyer. And so it's kind of hard. Like people, like we did not, when I got the degree, it did not seem like this cash cow would ever come to an end. But I guess that's life. Like things change. So it's always important to be learning and growing. But yeah, I think sometimes I do worry about the AI taking my job. I don't know if it's going to come this year or in the next 5 years. But yeah, I'm impressed enough to think that I should be looking at other avenues.
We've adapted it and we've used it and leveraged it, and we aren't afraid of it. It's like we all have subscriptions to like these different LLMs and use them constantly, and they make us more effective.
And everyone's just constantly talking crap about it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like,
I'm using it every day, but I hate this.
Oh, it's so bad, but like give me how to do this thing, or like write this whatever for me. And so I just think it's really weird. I also feel like as engineers, you're just taught how to solve problems.
Yeah.
For sure. And so it's weird to me that the exact field that I feel has a very flexible framework to learn how to problem solve and break stuff down is afraid of like a new innovation. Stuff changes every year. Like if we can get through the Industrial Revolution and everything ends up being fine, and I would argue better than it used to be before the Industrial Revolution, I feel like AI would be the same thing. It might be a rocky path at first. Maybe there's need to be some regulations or something, but I feel like it'll be fine. And I hope that it'll help people for the better, not the worse.
Yeah, it's definitely going to change the world. Like, I think.
I think it already has in a lot of ways. I think it changed even how we work day to day, or how people get information and things of that nature. AI is already in so many different products. It's just in a less forward-facing way. Now you're interacting with it directly. It's like when you open Instagram, you don't think they're using machine learning to show you the things that they think that they should show you. Like, no, it's already there. This is just front and center. And so it's a little different.
So I guess like for the people listening, right, that are complete beginner programmers, like let's say you're first year in your like computer science degree and you're seeing this like Devin tool. And let's just be blunt, like it is probably better than you are right now, right? Like it can do more stuff than you can do. Like it will be able to create projects faster than you can. Like, what do we say to those kind of people? Because I know it's hard to go back and remember when we were like just starting out, because for a lot of us, we've been coding now for like almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say to those people? Like, should they drop out of the computer science degree or should they keep going?
No, I would say absolutely not. I would say if you're interested in coding and you're passionate about it and you enjoy building stuff with code, then you shouldn't drop out of computer science or not pursue coding.
I think it's just going to change how you like learn to code in the first place, which I think has changed over time. Even since I was in college learning to code, if I had to go back and learn to code, I would learn completely differently. For sure. So you just have to, there's just going to be modern tools, technologies, resources for you to get up to speed with how people are currently working in the industry, I guess.
I would say that you should lean into it. I think a lot about being in the industry is things change. People used to use C 50 years ago. People still use C today, but now there's like higher level languages and things that are more popular or easier to use. And people do that. And I don't think it's that different. So today I would feel like if you're learning to code, I would lean on AI and use it. And it can help you learn things faster, I would say.
So I would say, right, to these people that are in computer science degree, like the first thing to understand is that a computer science degree is quite a bit different than what you're actually going to do as a software engineer. And that's probably one of the main reasons why, like, you'll be looking at a tool like Devin and go, holy shit, like, look what this thing can do versus me. The type of...
Right. I agree. And it's like, for somebody who's been to the upper echelon of, who's gotten a degree from Cornell, right? Even my Ivy League degree does not do justice to what I actually do on my day-to-day job. And I'm still wondering, like, how would I even set somebody up to be established in my, or be ready to come into my job? And that's quite challenging. And I think maybe AI might give us the answer, is to be able to, like, I think I did a little bit. Like when I was in Cornell, we had group assignments and there was no way we could finish the homework by ourselves. Like we had to lean on each other. And I think this is extremely important to how life works in the real world, is that you have groups and you need everybody in that group to carry their weight in order to be successful. And it's just it sucks. I don't even know, man, that's a lot of noises outside of my apartment. I apologize if you can hear that. Let me see. Hopefully you can. I've tried to tone some of that stuff down. But yeah, I have, in order to necessarily get to do my job, you have to depend on others. You have to be great with humans, and you really have to just spend a lot of time at the company learning about the culture, because interesting. Let me see. I'm still checking that, because the culture matters. Like if you work at Netflix, everything is Java based. But if you were to work at Discord, everything is Elixir and Rust based. And so even if you are a master at Netflix programming, it's going to take you a little bit of time to become a master at Discord programming, which is going to take you some time to become a master at programming at Google. Like it takes time to learn about these different cultures. And I think there's an experience aspect to it. And are you, like, let's say I've seen seniors come in and they're not as strong or as helpful with programming because they've learned outdated skills. Seniors come in and they're, let me see, I just want to do a song.
You can, like, for you to get
important to how, let me mute myself for a second. Life works in the I apologize. In order to know, it's just, it sucks. I don't even know. All right, the audio seems good. My bad for that.
things I learned in a computer science program like did not really directly translate over to a job.
100%.
And most of the other people that were in my program, like by the time they were graduating or like trying to go for internships, they're realizing like, oh crap, like there's so much other stuff I need to learn by myself. And I think that's probably the first thing to realize. Like if you want to be a software engineer, you have to accept the fact that you're going to be learning so many new things constantly. And first of all, you're gonna have to go outside of your curriculum and like actually write code. The first step to getting better is not to be getting mad.
Right. They say, LeBron says to the rookies is like, once you get to the NBA, you haven't made it. The grind starts all the way over again. You are a freshman.
That Devin is like about to replace you. It's like, okay, I got to get better than Devin as quickly as possible. And that means like doing coding on your own. Right.
Yeah. A lot of same thing with me, like a lot of computer science stuff. I mean, dude, I took so many classes. I tried to do like calculus problems the other day. I don't remember anything. Like stuff like so much stuff you learn is just kind of useless. But I think like, yeah, people that are worried about that, even if you're a beginner, like people pushing this narrative, like, oh yeah, we're going to replace everybody. It probably scares off a lot of people from learning to code, which is bad. And there's really, what is your alternative? Okay. What are you going to do? What are you going to learn other than coding? If you're interested in coding, what are you going to do then? Okay, you're going to go into business. Okay, you might get automated there. You're going to go into this, like you can get automated in literally anything you go into. So there's no point in worrying about your job getting automated, especially when you're not even close to getting a job. And the job market might be completely different, and everything might be completely different by the time you learn how to code.
I feel like there was this big influx of people who wanted to learn how to code just because they thought it would be a fast way to make six figures. And now like AI is on the scene. So they're like, oh, I don't want to do that now. AI is going to replace my job. So I feel like that's kind of deterring a lot of people who only wanted to learn how to code just for the money aspect. But yeah, if you're genuinely passionate about coding and you like writing code, that's a really good point. What else are you going to do? Personally, I don't know what else I would do if it wasn't coding.
And if you do nothing, you're just doing nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, just learn to code. If you're interested in it, learn it.
Yeah.
I used to be so passionate about writing code. And now that I have a job and I have to write code on like it's a sprint, right? If you've heard of the agile workflow, like it's a sprint now. Like writing code sucks. Like it's one thing to be able to like solve a puzzle over a month at your own pace, but it's another thing when like trying to solve a puzzle while people are screaming at you. And I think that's generally like that. That's generally what it is on a job, depending on your work culture. Actually, I heard it like WhatsApp. They had a culture of like if somebody wanted to push deadlines that it was okay, but yeah.
I mean, there's no point. You're like, what else are you gonna do?
So here's a scenario. Like, let's say somebody does learn how to code. They go through a 4-year computer science degree or a boot camp or whatever. They get a job, and in 2 years they're completely replaced. Do you guys think that was a waste of time?
I wouldn't say it's a complete waste of time because the type of skills you develop by learning how to code translate into everyday life. I mean, we just filmed some other videos where we talked about this, and I think all of us really have a certain way of thinking, a certain way of structuring problems, even our own lives to some extent because of the type of skills that we've learned and that what we need to do, right? It's a very logical, think through it, critical thinking type field. Like you can't get through it unless you think that way. So I would say that's very important. That's going to carry you in a lot of aspects of life. But I would also say like, you just have to adapt, right? Like, let's say you were to get replaced and, all of a sudden it's doing the code generation that you would normally do. Like, let's think of like a QA person, right? Who's doing like some testing scripts. Okay. That's probably going to be one of the first things to go. Like AI can do quite a bit of testing quite fast. I use it to write like automated unit tests all the time.
Yeah.
So what do you got to do? You have to learn, okay, how can I use AI to be like way better than it? How can I optimize with it, right? It's just another challenge. Like coding every few years changes. I remember when I was just writing plain HTML websites. Now, all of a sudden, that's like super easy. No one does that. I got to learn React, or I got to learn Vue, or I got to learn whatever, all these other frameworks. It's the same thing in this coding field now, just with this AI as like kind of a bigger obstacle, right?
Yeah.
Anything can be automated, essentially, that people can do if AI becomes as smart as people, right?
Yeah.
So how soon before that do you think that programmers would get automated compared to everything else?
It's funny because I feel like, not to say that we're like up on our high horse or something, but I do feel like programming is a thing that there's a higher entry to get into.
For sure.
You need to know a lot of stuff. You have to go to a boot camp or learn a lot of information. It's not something you could just show up to and do. So in my opinion, I feel like there will be like swarms of jobs that are automated before. And then at that point, the writing will be on the wall. It'll be like,
Exactly.
I agree.
you know, it'll be like, oh, now I should be concerned when like 30% of other people have lost their jobs in X, right? And I think at that point, that's when I would be concerned. And so I feel like luckily we might have that little bit of buffer where we will see those things happening in front of our eyes truly to like a large magnitude. And then at that point, I would probably start thinking, where is my life raft? Where should I go from here? But not now.
Yeah, and you'll kind of see it happening. Like if you're paying attention to the trends and you're paying attention to how AI is impacting your job, either you'll adapt or you'll kind of succumb to it. And any good engineer is going to learn how to adapt and learn how to use it in their everyday life.
And of course, all of these startup AI companies that do these demos that people get scared of and it goes viral all over the internet.
Yeah.
They're doing that because they do want to shock people. They want to market. They want to raise more funding, like impress investors and all that stuff. So it's just like, that's just the sentiment that's going around.
True.
When it's really not like the reality fully.
Have you guys seen Devin's website or the company that made Devin, the website?
Yeah.
Here.
I've seen the thumbnail of the video. I haven't actually watched
I hope Devin didn't make that.
You think Devin made that?
Yeah, it's pretty basic. I think I could teach
If
someone
that's
to make that.
all Devin can make, I'm not concerned.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that right now.
I don't know, man. That's pretty concerning to me.
I
Yeah.
think it's cool, but I don't know. I don't think
that's cool?
I mean,
that's better than I could do when I didn't know how to code. I mean, that's as much as I could tell you. I'm also too much of an optimist, maybe, but I hope.
yeah, it's like there's another limitation of AI, right? Like, can it provide art that we think is beautiful and stunning to the eye? Like, can AI become good enough to and I guess, yeah, we've already seen Midjourney, right? Be able to create art. But I don't know. Midjourney is pretty good. I've seen some like AI generated art and it's been pretty lackluster in my opinion. Midjourney, I think I am excited for OpenAI Sora because that seems like you might be able to create movies from it eventually. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how well AI can automate artists, right? It should be able to automate artists before it automates programmers, and it should be able to automate lawyers way before it automates software engineers.
Maybe this is wrong. Or, I mean, who knows what'll happen? But I like to think that if AI is going to change the world and replace a bunch of people, I like to think optimistically that will just let people do more of what they want. Some people don't like writing code. Some people don't want to work for 40 hours a week or whatever. Maybe they want to be artists. Maybe they want to learn underwater jazz. I don't know. Like whatever they want to do. I just hope that it lets people do more of what they want.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not real, but I like to think that.
To bring it back a bit to what you said, like we hear all this fear mongering, AI is going to replace your job. Like you said, like I don't actually know a single job in like the technical programming software engineering field that is like actually been fully replaced by AI. I don't know anything where it's someone literally came and said, hey, because AI is around, I lost my job in programming. In other fields, I do know that, but not in like software engineering.
Yeah, that's
I
interesting.
was wondering if you guys know Amazon Alexa and the smart devices, like it just seems like that seems like a good application where like AI might come in and just be able to do a lot of things better than human beings. And I've seen a lot of people. I've seen Amazon lay off a lot of people on that, and so that's the only. I might be wrong. Like I don't know the exact reasons why they laid them off. It could have been just because of money, but we do see companies kind of taking a bet that some of this stuff that we were doing previously, it can be done with AI, and maybe that was just fear mongering in the articles. But yeah, I'm curious. If you have lost your job by AI, and if you know anybody who's lost their job by AI, please write it below. I would love to hear it. We would love to know.
Interesting point. I feel like in the timeline of jobs being replaced, programming jobs is way down the road. But have you guys heard of any jobs being replaced by AI, like programming or not?
Like cashiers, for example. But I think it's really just a reallocation of resources. Like I used to work at McDonald's, and when I worked there, that was when they were like bringing in all the electronic tills. And at that point, what really happened is no one lost their job. They just said, hey, rather than taking orders now, you're just going to go prepare food, or you're going to be more efficient in the kitchen and doing this. Now, obviously that means like maybe they need like 1 or 2 less staff because they don't have someone sitting like at the cashier, but it's not a full wipe of the workforce. It's really a reallocation of resources into where you need that human touch, right? Which I think is also what's going to happen quite a bit with software engineering. Like now we don't need 5 interns that are doing like boilerplate testing code that's like super easy, right? We can reallocate them to do something that actually requires human interaction, which maybe programmers don't want to hear, but that's really what I think is just kind of shifting what you need to do, right?
Yeah. I want to ask you guys.
What if AI made everybody work on problems that actually change the world instead of like, I don't think you guys know, like when I started programming, I had like dreams of like making the next algorithm for Facebook or like really doing something extravagant with my time, but you guys wouldn't believe how hard it is to do something super tiny for a company. Like, I can't tell you, I probably shouldn't talk about some of the things that I've done in my job, but you like sometimes an engineer that moves 1 Lego brick, right? Or like, I remember when I was interviewing on Google and they were talking about me being on a team that just made the chips more performant, right? Let's say we make a chip more performant 2% in 1 year. That literally might make Google not billions, millions of dollars. It's like, and that's kind of cool, right? Like, something so tiny could have a major impact in a big company. But yeah, I love AI to make me do more the important stuff. But yeah, don't take everything. Yeah.
Question, you might have very like subjective answers, which is okay. But what are some skills that programmers could learn to possibly like future-proof their job with AI, if there are any?
Communication, social,
yeah,
interaction.
soft skills.
So
Absolutely soft skills.
How to build and use AI.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah,
that's more future-proof than other things, right?
I think that's a great answer.
I think being able to like pitch your value and speak with confidence is super important. Like I know some developers that are really, really good, but if you were just talking to them, like you wouldn't know that because they can't convey it to you well.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They can build something cool, but they just don't like show themselves off well, which I think especially in this era, like you want to stand out as a developer, someone who is more well-rounded, can utilize these tools, but has other things to bring to the table. So learning like just how to speak properly, how to present yourself, how to go into an interview. It would really surprise a lot of people, but I had to interview a bunch of software engineers recently, and I was shocked just bluntly at how poor most of them were at communicating and how bad their resumes were, how bad the emails were they sent. Like, I'm like, no wonder you guys are not getting jobs if this is your best foot forward, right?
Mm-hmm. And the easiest things to automate are things that are repetitive and are done over and over and are easy to do. Like those are the things that are going to be. So anything that's like where you have to critically think a lot and actually figure things out on your own, going into a niche like that is probably the best case for like future proof wise.
Yeah.
I kind of think too that the best thing engineering as a whole has taught me is just how you get stuck and then you figure out a way around that obstacle or over it or through it. And I think before I started learning how to code, I had such a lower stamina in terms of like how frustrated I would get when I get stuck 100%. On anything in life or had to figure out a way to solve some problem. And now I don't get nearly as annoyed or frustrated. I've like learned how to learn, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so you could take that and you're willing to like hit your head against the wall way more, at least in my opinion, as an engineer, because like that's your job. You figure out how to do things you don't know how to do, and you eventually figure out a solution and arrive at it. So I think if you could take that kind of framework and just apply it to anything else, I bet you could learn.
Yeah. Teaching you, it's kind of sad. I remember the CEO of NVIDIA was saying like, our job is to make sure the children don't have to learn how to program. And that's kind of sad because programming is the best way to teach somebody how to learn because it is so frustrating. It is like trying to lift a brick with your mind. It is so painful, but that is how people learn. Learning is frustrating. Learning is you failing and you trying something again. and you having to do that 100, 1,000. Sometimes if you're a researcher, you do it millions of, maybe I'm exaggerating. Let's say 100,000. You do it 100,000 times in order to get a answer that is satisfiable. And I kind of, there's an article out that said Google made me stupider. I don't know. I kind of wanted to like see if I can find it. Google me stupid. Is Google making us stupid? There was an article out. It was beautiful. Let's see if I can find it real quick. There was an article out, and basically it was talking about how back in the day, people were able to like read books and pay attention a lot easier. But now with the use of Google Maps, being able to search for things, like it's very hard to like pay attention. And so, real quick, it's very hard to like pay attention today because so much of our ability to focus has been taken from us because we're always connected to the internet. Somebody can always call us. Like I remember when I was in high school, I had teachers that bragged about how they didn't have a phone. They just walked around. Nobody had instant access to them, and they just were fully present with everybody. And you've seen, I got a video coming out, I think it's Thursday, about the Neuralink, my reaction to the Neuralink, right? Like we're always connected to these devices. I think people are going to become even more zombie-like in the future, unfortunately. And so, yeah, AI is kind of scary, right? I don't know if you've seen Black Mirror, but they talk about how people are just in the future where like they can record every single moment of their life, how they're very disconnected. And so I think that is what scares me like about AI too, is that so much of the most important moments of our lives are going to be unappreciated or lived unconsciously in the future because we're just too connected. And yeah, I've even heard, well, get back in that. Like I've even heard people like taking Sunday off, like, you know, like religiously, like they don't have any internet. Like I think that might be something that I want to get back into because the internet is draining.
Virtually anything. So if you're not doing engineering anymore, you could apply it to anything else.
Yeah, I think now it's becoming important to have like a good amount of domain knowledge in like different fields, right? To be able to use AI effectively, I feel like you kind of need to know like a bit about a lot of different areas, and then you can actually see if it's giving you the correct responses or replies, right? I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'll go there and ask it to like kind of rate the solution that I'm going to be using for something and give me maybe different alternatives. But the thing is, it can hallucinate and give me things that are complete garbage, right? Even the code that it generates sometimes doesn't even work, or it's not at all what I asked it for. So being able to actually utilize those tools and like audit them to some extent, right? Because if you think about it, we're going to start using AI. They're going to hire a software engineer who already knows like what the correct solution is to utilize AI to just get it done faster. We still need the oversight, right?
Yeah, like this thing is like the AIs aren't like critically thinking. Like if I'm asking it like, oh, build me this mini Python project, build me this mini web project. Yeah, it's going to spin me out a bunch of template code and it's going to be pretty useful. But if I'm like, all right, help me with this self-driving car project, help me with the build an app on the Apple Vision Pro, it's going to be like, oh, there's not enough information out there on Google. I don't know how to critically think. I can't figure out all these problems.
That's a good point, actually.
That's an interesting point, and it will be interesting to see how LLMs integrate with companies' code bases. You know, and give you solutions based off the current code base.
Yeah.
I think just the main issue too is like right now we obviously can't trust like 100% what the output is. And a lot of times you can ask an AI like, hey, do you know how to do this? And it'll just say yes, even though it doesn't actually know the correct result, right? Like it has those AI hallucinations.
Yeah.
So if you were just have like your AI software engineer like working in the background with no supervision, or you had a full company of AI software engineers, like what's actually going to happen? Like I'd be very curious to see a project where it was like an AI manager and like 5 AI software engineers, and see like what actually gets built, what the iteration cycles look like, if they end up implementing like agile, Scrum, whatever.
Right.
Like I
Figure
want
it out,
what are they gonna do? Because like it's different agents working together, like they don't have that human touch, and also there's nothing like, what about the ethic component of it as well, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing too. You even see that nowadays, right? Like there's some things that motivate models, right? Like if you're on any kind of app or something, a lot of times it's about retention, getting you to watch longer, see more ads, that kind of a thing. And so even nowadays there's stuff like that. Like if you call an airline, you know, maybe I wait 10 minutes and you wait 2 minutes. And it's like, there's a reason for that I don't know, that they do know. And so I think it's a similar thing with AI where like what is being optimized for and why, and who's, you know, pulling those levers to make those things happen. And it is very much like a black box. Like you don't know what happens, but you just get some kind of answer. And very few people control that black box.
Did you see that recent?
Yeah. I took an AI ethics class, and they were talking about how an AI model, when they were testing an AI model to see whether they would make people, whether they would send people back to jail or they would listen or let them go, it would more likely than not make Black and minorities go to jail more often than others. And that's quite interesting. Like, and it did that because statistically speaking, other minorities were more likely to be repeat offenders. And so it lacks a human touch, right? Like it can't necessarily look at the content of a human being and say, hey, like you seem like somebody I want to trust, right? But does that mean the model is racist? Is that it just used data in a pure unbiased way in order to come to a conclusion? Or should it have some type of lever in it to maybe like, what is the word? There's some word for when they give minorities a leg up in going to universities or something. Affirmative action. Should they have some type of like affirmative action for Black people in this AI model? And it's hard to say. Like it is. I don't even have the best answer for it. I just think that AI models should never be able to choose whether a human being goes to jail, but it might have other applications where we might want that bias to go in there. But yeah, the future is.
Example, I don't want to get into the politics of it, but it was like some AI, I think it was like Gemini or something, that started generating like a bunch of like Black characters for like, you know, very traditionally, or like what just objectively is like a white, you know, instance, character, entity, whatever it's supposed to be. Yeah, I think they pulled it immediately because there's some like introduced bias into the model. Yeah. So I think it's just interesting when we trust, especially like a closed source model, even something like, I don't know what Devin probably is going to be. I don't imagine this is open source. Like, could they implement it so any of their competitors, it generates like horrible code that doesn't work? Like, I don't know. It's an interesting problem to see what's going to happen in the future.
That's why I almost feel like in some ways there's like, you have to have some kind of regulation or some way for there to be oversight that isn't like the company who's trying to make money with the thing.
For sure.
Because otherwise it is really scary. And then people start running with that and using it. It's almost like, I think there was an example that I think Elon Musk gave about talking about how there were cars and then you didn't have seatbelts for cars for like years and years and years. And there was so many problems and deaths and injuries because there were no seatbelts for so long. It wasn't regulated. And in some ways, AI is the same thing. Like there's this thing moving unimaginably fast. Like you just said, ChatGPT came out like a year ago and it's already advancing so much. And if there aren't regulations, if there aren't people at least thinking about these things very critically, it's a little scary for like what could happen.
All right, final thoughts on Devin on AI.
I would say, just keep going, utilize it as a tool, but remember that if you want to get to a point where you're going to be better than it, it is going to take time. It is going to take years of experience. It's not something where you're just going to pick it up and be amazing right away.
Yeah.
I think that where there's smoke, there's fire, and I don't really smell smoke yet. I'm not worried.
You can't predict the future, so there's no point in worrying.
But yeah, I would say if you're genuinely interested in learning how to code and you're passionate about it, you definitely shouldn't let AI stop you.
For sure.
All right.
Join school.
All right. So we made it through the entire video, and I could not agree more. Like, AI is, if I were a student or if I had to talk to you guys personally, I would say that programming is definitely still a great thing to learn, right? Like, I don't think AI is just gonna like be able to replace software engineers overnight. Like, it's gonna be gradual, step by step, and definitely, if you don't know, like, learning how to program is going to give you a leg up on other software engineers. I mean, other people who don't know how to code, to be able to use these systems a lot better. And so, yeah, there's a lot of great reasons to learn how to code, as far as like what you learn from critical thinking, and all that. So I can't agree with that more. I'm going to, what is it? I'm going to share this link at the bottom. But yeah, this was a great video. I think I'm going to go ahead and show you a little bit of that article about, is Google making us stupid? And then I might get up out of here. I think I have like 30 more minutes. And so gotta make this full screen actually. And so we have this article, and I remember reading it in class. Even bigger. What the internet is doing to our brains. Let's see. I'm going to read a little bit. Dave, stop. Will you stop, Dave? Will you stop, Dave? So supercomputer Hal pleads with the implacable astronaut Dave Bowman in a famous, weirdly poignant scene towards the end of Stanley A Space. Bowman, having nearly been sent to deep space, blah, blah, blah. I can't feel it too. Over the past few years, I've had an uncomfortable sense that somewhere there's something has been tinkering with my brain, remapping the neural circuitry, reprogramming the memory. My mind isn't going so far as I can tell, but it's changing. I'm not thinking the way I used to think. I can feel it most strongly when I'm reading immersively myself in the book, where the lengthy articles used to be easy. My mind will get caught up in the narrative and turn into arguments. I spend hours strolling along the stretches of prose that rarely case anymore. Now my concentration often starts to drift 2 or 3 pages. I get fidgety. I lose threads. I begin looking for something else to do. I feel as though always dragging my wayward brain back into the text. The deep reading that used to come naturally has become a struggle. I think I know what's going on. For more than a decade now, I've been spending a lot of time online searching, surfing, and sometimes adding to the great databases of the internet. The web has been godsend to me as a writer. Research that once required days and stacks of periodical rooms or libraries can now be done in minutes. Few Google searches, some quick clicks on a hyperlinks, and I got a telltale fact or a pithy quote I was after. Even when I was not working, I was likely as not to be foraging in a web of info, thickets, readings, and writings, emails, scanning headlines and blog posts, watching videos and listening to podcasts, or just tripping from links to links. Unlikely footnotes to which they are sometimes likened. Hyperlinks do not merely point to related works, they propel you towards them. For me, as others, the net is becoming a universal medium, the conduit for the most information that flows through my eyes and ears into my mind. The advantage of having immediate access to an incredible rich store of information is many, and they really describe dull of plot. The perfect recall of silicon memory, wire clip through hash writing, can be the enormous boom to thinking. But that boom comes at a price. As the media theorist Marshall McLuhan pointed out in the 1960s, media are not as just passive channels of information that supply the stuff and thoughts, but also shape the process of thought and what the net seems to be doing is chipping away from my capacity of concentration and contemplation. My mind now expects to take information in a way that the net distributes it in swiftly moving streams of particle. Once I have scuba diver in the sea of words, now I zip along the surface like a guy on a jet ski. All right, that's enough of that. But you get the point. This guy is saying that in this age of internet, he is unable to focus. He's unable to pay attention. And in a world where the AI can plan and critical think, are people going to be, what is the word? Are people going to choose to do that work for themselves if the AI can do it all for themselves? For them. It's hard to say, and it's very scary to think what the world might look like in the future. There is so much to life. It is struggle, it is pain, it is the suffering. It's the things that make us feel like life is worth living. It's that when we are struggling, overcoming that, and then being able to reminisce on those moments to give our lives more value. And AI taking away those problems is the scariest thing for me. As someone who is competitive and driven, the thought of not being able to get up and do something and have an impact on the world extremely scares me. What will I do with my time? They have a quote. It says, "The devil comes for idle hands." What that basically means, when people are bored, the devil is able to seduce them. I think the world is heading for a deeper level of insanity than we are already at today. If you think about what our society was 20 years ago with Christianity, the rules, the community, even if you are not religious, you must be able to appreciate how people were, at least had community. Of course, there existed racism. Of course, there existed war, but families were much more respected. And perhaps you might say that this era is better as far as freedom, but it has come with the cost of insanity with people. I don't want mean to get political, but in my opinion, the world has become, a lot of the different political ideologies of some come from, what is the word? A deep hunger, a need for people to be able to find something. I remember there was a podcast saying Joe Rogan said that we need Jesus. An atheist saying that we need Jesus because the whole world is losing its mind. Well, I think that's only going to get worse as AI takes jobs and becomes smarter. And so I don't know where we're going to be in the next 2 years or the next 5 years. But what I will say is that today is so important to live your life knowing that tomorrow may not come. The dreams that many of us had may not be there in 5 years. We may all have to dream a new dream. And so don't give up. If you're programming or if you're doing something right now and you feel like it's going to automate it, learn how to use the AI. Do the best that you can to ride the wave and not be under it. But yeah, I think I'm going to end it there for tonight. I would actually, yeah, I think I'm going to, well, let's see one more video. Can't even use it. I wanted to do a monologue. So we got an 11-minute video. I'll do that. I did that long ass monologue. I don't know if you enjoyed that, but yeah, it's scary. We're gonna watch one more video. The real reason why tech hiring is slowed down, surprisingly, I'm not sure if it's AI related, but I did think it was something that was worth looking at in case you're looking for a job. We're going into overtime, and let's take a look.
Everyone's talking about the two real reasons tech hiring is struggling, because despite what the NVIDIA CEO is telling you, don't even learn to code anymore because you could just use our GPUs and write everything with AI. That's not a reality yet, because GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT, they have a hard time closing parentheses for now, let alone editing a code base and understanding it a million lines and being able to reliably make changes that actually work. So we're a long way off from that, and that is not currently, at least, driving the tech hiring downturn, which has been going on for quite a while now. So the things that most people aren't talking about, which are the clear economic drivers of this, which if they're reversed can overnight really turn things around, are number one, the end of ZIRP or the zero interest rate phenomenon, and number two, something barely anyone even knows about, which is Section 174, the change to the tax code. Now, we're going to get into both of these because if you're trying to break into the industry, if you're deciding whether it's worth it to still learn, then it's really important to have your eye on these two things, because again, if they change, it can have an overnight surge back to hiring. And in fact, we'll talk about the AI thing a bit more, but we do have reason to believe that if anything, that's going to expand the tech industry. And while each developer will, of course, become more productive as they already have, this may actually change the nature of what coding jobs are to an extent, but doesn't necessarily mean that software engineering jobs are going to be eliminated. They're just going to be slightly altered in the way that new.
Woo! I like the sound of that. Let me see. Yeah, make me more productive, man. I'd appreciate it. Okay, there it is. I like that one a little bit better. Make me more productive. So yeah, we have one guy saying that the job, I do agree. I promise you guys, unless AI really does take our jobs next year, which would be insane. Like that would be record-breaking time. The hiring cycle goes ups and downs, and there will be a time, mark my words, hot take, there will be a recession after this year, maybe next year, right? Maybe the year after that, there will be a boom in the economy. There will be a time where companies are hiring again, even new grads. I don't know if there's going to be one after that, but I do foresee a time period where they are hiring new grads in the future. I think thinking that AI is going to take all of our jobs is still just too optimistic, is my guess. But let's see. And if it does happen, it is what it is. Like some people are saying in the next 5 years, but we'll see.
Programming languages, new frameworks, and paradigms have made people more productive in the past. So let's start by quickly touching on ZIRP. Interest rates were near zero for a long time. So the cost of capital was very cheap. It was basically free to borrow money with debt. And your risk-free return, that is with treasury bonds and similar, was basically zero. So that combination led to people making slightly more risky equity-style investments, namely venture capital, which drives a huge part part of the tech industry. This is the big reason salaries in the US are much higher than other countries when it comes to software engineering, software developer salaries, because the industry is basically inflated by all this money flowing into it. Now, when there's less overall money coming in, of course, that's less of a budget for spending on developers, reinvesting, and similar. And more of that money is flowing to the risk-free investments, because when you do the calculation on return, you of course have to factor in the risk, and we can get mathematical about it, but that is the high-level overview. And this has been well documented across history, where lower interest rates basically mean that certain industries get inflated. Now, the cause of this, of course, inflation was high, the rates went up to combat that, and therefore, it has this downstream impact. However, this is not a permanent state of things. Ideally speaking, if things were to return to their, let's say, last 30 years average, then that trend could be reversed. Now, the other economic pressure is the Section 174 tax law. Now, just to briefly cover it, basically, there was a change to the tax code where software engineering salaries and any investment into software development is now counted as R&D that has to be amortized. Now, what this means is, even as crazy as it sounds, developer salaries, you cannot deduct them as a tax expense. So if you're a startup and you want to hire one developer at $100K a year and you make $100K profit, in the past, you could fully deduct that salary, meaning you'd have zero profit for that year and pay zero taxes. However, under Section 174, you have to deduct that salary over 5 years. So you can only deduct 20K in year one, meaning you have to pay tax on the remaining 80K in that first year. Therefore,
Whew. I see why they're firing all of us. They're laying us all off because it's no longer good for business, man. The industry can be so elitist, and it sucks. That's just how it is right now. But yeah, I'd love to see the laws change. Go to your representative.
let's say your tax rate is 40%. On that 80K, you have to pay around 33,000 of taxes, meaning now you would have a loss of 33K rather than a break-even profit. So of course you can deduct it in the following years. However, that's very difficult as a startup, and it's even difficult as a larger company, though there can be certain, tax benefits to this style of amortization. It puts a lot of short-term pressure on how much you can actually spend. All this is to say that this is an additional pressure driver on the industry at large, because now you have to think long-term and really second guess how you're reinvesting your profits and your revenue, because there are more tax implications. So this is
I think it seems like, from my experience, startups have an incentive to try to go into debt and spend as much money as possible. So it does seem like this. I'm not familiar, not the tax guy, but yeah, it does seem like this could be a problem for the entire industry, whether these big behemoth companies have to pay for them. But hey, I think I don't know. The bigger companies will always be able to afford to take more risk. But yeah, this does definitely make sense with the inflated market in America compared to other countries. I guess that's why everybody wants to come to America.
particularly devastating to startups. However, it again puts that pressure on the entire industry, where now a software developer in the short term is much more expensive from an overall cost standpoint. You might be thinking, okay, companies are just going to go overseas. However, for overseas development work, you have to amortize it over 10 years. So it gets even worse. There is a movement, let's say, to repeal or edit this nonsensical new legislation that went into effect right around when the tech layoffs started. That was tax year 2022. So people are moving to repeal it, to change it, because the implications are pretty devastating. However, that still hasn't happened. So if we cross our fingers, keep an eye on it, this could also relieve some of that pressure on the industry, bring back a surge of hiring and similar. So what exactly do you do at this point? Because of course, these two things seem pretty bad. You could just look at the AI stuff, completely give up. However, at this stage, I don't think that's a great idea still. Number one, because what's really your alternative? AI is putting pressure on every industry. And while yes, software development, breaking into the industry before was almost too good to be true, where you could just not have a degree, teach yourself, and then break in and be earning 100K, it's still good. It's still possible. However, yes, in the current state of things, it is a bit harder. That is also affecting the supply side, though. People's sentiments around it have changed. Bootcamp admissions and sign up.
So I have a video coming out this week. It should be talking about how I got a job with no, I did have experience, but if I had no experience today, right, and I had to get a job today, how I would go about that. And spoiler alert, it's just you can buy a course on a highly sought after language like Rustlang, which the White House is urging people to program in, and then learn how to program open source. If you're a go-getter and a hustler, that's going to be the hardest path. If you want to self-teach, and you're going to need a lot of time. Honestly, yeah, breaking into this industry is hard, but it's doable if you have the right mentors and have enough free time to really study. But yeah, also learn how to use the AI. You might be able to start your business without going to work.
Have gone down. So if you're kind of willing to go against the crowd at this point, if you're willing to bet on the recovery and still learning now, you could be in a very good position in the near future for breaking in once things do recover, which I do think will happen. Now, before we talk about AI, there is simply one thing that I have to be blunt about. Now, more than ever, when you get those interview opportunities, if you're spending all that time applying, when you get your shot, you cannot waste it. Rather than casually doing leak code programs and watching videos on YouTube, I do think it's a great idea to do something a little bit more serious and comprehensive, like Interview Prep by Interview Kickstart. This is a multi-month program that will really take you through link. And now let's continue. There's sort of an asymptote line.
So I've done Interview Kickstart. It's like 10 grand, 20 grand. I've seen of it, I heard of it, and that might be a great way to get started as well. But you're paying a lot of money, you're gonna have to study a lot, and so might be worth the investment to get connections at industries. But yeah, being in a FANG company is not as worth it as you think. You may have the nice salaries, but you see they're not as loyal as they used to be, and the culture is becoming more corporate day by day. So honestly, I would say just if you can move out to any city and learn or get a mentor, or if you just want a casual life, then yeah, just work remotely. Yeah.
For AI productivity within coding. What you see even in the image and video generation is it's like 90 to 95% perfect, but there's always a few things wrong. And it's the same with text generation LLMs. There will be one or two things off. And as suitable as AI is for code generation, that missing 5%, which I think is going to be very hard to get, that last 5% actually perfect, which is what we've seen so far. That's a big issue with coding, because if one line doesn't compile, if one line doesn't work, then the whole thing breaks. So you can't just be generating code without understanding it, because then you can't debug things that are wrong. You can't identify them. In a perfect world, the AI would be reading your entire, 100,000 line code base, and you could just tell it, hey, I want to add this feature, and it would go and do that. But as any developer working with AI now would tell you, number one, it can't do that at all. So you can't really feed it in a large input. Even a full long file, it won't accept. And even if you could, it would probably have a few of those errors / not really match your naming patterns or conventions, make certain things up. So you'd still have to go in and fix it, which could, in the current state, even take longer than just writing it yourself. So the ideal way to use it now is to maybe just generate a starter function, some boilerplate, or complete a line where it's already very clear what you're going to write. However, for those larger tasks, it's still very manual. And the reality of working as a developer is most of it is editing code, is reading, understanding, and changing things that are already written to fix bugs, make small changes, and similar. That's the reality of how things work now. So with the AI not being able to understand code in the way that a human can, it is still a very long way from doing the majority of development work, especially when you're dealing with production code. If you're dealing with a, fun sample project, completely different story, it can probably build something for you pretty quick. But especially within companies, legacy code bases, huge repositories, it's not really doing the heavy lifting for you. It's just doing a small subroutine. So that's my assessment of the current state of AI. I would not, at this point in time, listen to the NVIDIA CEO, other tech influencers saying, well, it's over, stopping to make videos completely because of this. We're just not there yet. And once we do get there, hopefully you could already be in a position to take advantage of it, where you're maybe already an established software engineer 5-10 years down the road, and then you already have that kind of credibility. You've mastered the meta programming aspect.
So it's like everybody keeps saying, like, continue to program. Here's when here's when you need to think, like, here's when you need to wonder, here's when you know that they're about to automate programming. When they've automated being a lawyer, and when they've automated being going to a doctor, when you don't even need to go to a doctor anymore. I think those two jobs, although more vague than maybe I'm biased. I'm not saying my job is harder than programming. I'm just saying a lot of the things that I have to do, the information, like, let's say Python has probably only been around for like 10, 15 years, where, like, I don't know, cardiovascular information has been around. Probably there's 60 years of great information, probably the last 20 years or more. Like, there's more textbooks on probably, like, the heart is what I'm saying. So it might be easier to automate going to a doctor than being a programmer, where you have to change stuff, or at least not the surgical part, but at least having it, like, speak to a doctor. That's when you need. That's when they've automated everybody else's job except programmers. Then that's when you know, like, we are, programming is next, because programming is more challenging, in my opinion. Hot take. But other than that, I think I'm going to end it here tonight. Really appreciate you guys. I think I did a lot better job with the audio and the camera and the light setup. It's unfortunate. Couldn't get some more of you guys in here tonight, but it's all good. We're on a journey. I think I'm looking forward to Apple is having an announcement about their AI, and they've been talking smack that their AI is going to be better than everybody else's. So look out for that next month. I think it's in June, their developer conference. Also, look in the description if you want to hang out with me in the Discord. I tried to hang out with everybody, but everybody was busy. So might try to do that some more if you come through. Like, some of you guys keep messaging me and telling me, like, you want to talk to me. And it's like, I want to talk to you, but you don't come through. Like, I'm here. And the Discord, if you support me, pay $15. I promise I'll talk to you one-on-one, especially right now when the channel is small. And I guess that's it. Deuces.